Chelsea and Hannah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I can.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit through that, 11 o'clock.
What?
11 o'clock,
Yeah.
the records request?
You going down there to do it?
No, I'm gonna do it on Teams.
Test. Did that pick up? No. Testing. Good morning. All right, our mics are live. We're going to call this meeting to order. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, and we want to make sure we make good use of the time because this room is occupied at 11. I don't know how many people want to speak. So the meeting is called to order. Will you please do roll call?
Kelsey,
Here.
Scott,
Here?
Miranda,
Here.
and Ryan and Terry are out.
All right. First order of business is new business. Kelly, are you presenting any changes at all? Don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to point out that in the document that was sent out yesterday, there were some changes that did not get uploaded until this morning. We corrected some job titles in the utility operator and water plant operator realm. The planning code enforcement assistant was changed to a planning tech. We added the watermark as well as updated tables and career ladders with corrected titles. Some other updates were fire marshal, internal auditor, and senior business analyst, just so that folks are aware. We do have Hannah and Chelsea on the phone again to present the plan one more time for everybody. They'll go through at a high level, and I think that's it. I just wanted to take a moment and tell everybody thank you. I am overwhelmed by the amount of comments and feedback, the number of folks who have shown up. It means you care, and I feel weird talking to the back of the room, but you all care. This matters to you, and that matters to me. And so thank you for the honest feedback, for the candid conversations, and for being involved in your workplace. That means more than I can say. So truly, I am grateful. I feel like feedback is a gift, and I hope that I have conveyed that appropriately to everyone. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Perfect. Before we get into the presentation, I just want to mention a couple of things. We do have a full room here, and I think there was 44 online. It appears as though we have the mayor in the room as well, and then 2 of the council-elect. I saw John McMartin, and now I see Dr. Padragula as well. Just wanted to make sure that we're mentioning that any decisions that come out of this committee will have to go to council. So our decision is not a final decision. I appreciate all of the input from the employees that I received via phone calls and emails. There was quite a lot of them. And I just want to let you know that, again, our decision is not final. Whatever we make for a recommendation will go to council. So I would encourage all of you to reach out to your council members as well so that they can hear your concerns also. They may not hear them here today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heron Palmer just to briefly give an overview of the program again, since we've got so many people on. And then after that, we'll open it up to some public comment.
Alrighty. Can everyone see my screen? Is it sharing appropriately?
It is.
Yes.
I can see it. Yep.
Awesome. Cool.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll get you started today just with a recap of the agenda and what we plan to cover together. And so we like to start our presentation off by touching on the past work that we've done that kind of formed the foundation of the work that we've done this time, as well as our objective and the purpose. And then we'll walk through the job architecture and what that means and where it has landed. And then the base pay structure foundation, again, is going to take us a little bit deeper into the process that we followed and end with kind of a compensation 101, kind of a crash course to prepare us all for when we review outcomes. The outcomes will include the compensation philosophy review, as well as the project guidance, some costing and outcomes, and then we have a summary to conclude.
All right, so as Chelsea mentioned, we want to kick off by just talking about where we've been and how this project really came to fruition. So last year, we partnered with the City of Minot to do an organizational development and efficacy project. Out of that project really came the need to dig into the compensation structure. So we talked about that last year, and ultimately what that resulted in is the kind of need to do a deep dive into the pay plan this year. So for this project work, it's building on that previous work, but it's also making sure we're really compensation focused, that we're building a structure that provides consistency, supports compliance, and has enough flexibility to make good internal pay decisions. So at the end of the day, the pay plan should support our ability to attract, engage, and keep the right talent for the City of Minot. So the bullets that you see below are some of the steps that we took along the way, and we're going to walk you through that at a high level today to make sure you have a good understanding of how thorough and rigorous the project work itself was. We're going to keep it more at an executive level as we go through the presentation deck today so that we have time at the end for questions, and because we went into kind of the deep dive and details last week when we went through the presentation as well. So just making sure that we kind of hit it again, but don't rehash too much. So ultimately, we've reviewed job descriptions, made sure that we went out to external benchmarks. We'll talk about the salary surveys that we use to find those comparable positions. We've crafted a job architecture, which helps us classify and level the positions. We've taken a look at geography to make sure we understand how our local labor market differs from surrounding labor markets. All that came into making the updates to the pay plan and the salary structure and the analytics that we did to make sure we're bringing people into the new pay plan at the right place. So we're at the point now where we're going through the review process. And so hopefully today going through this presentation will kind of help you understand the rigor of the work that was done and where we're landing the way we are.
And so the purpose slide here is really to share the objectives on the left and kind of what success looks like on the right. Some of the objectives are probably pretty straightforward, including external market competitiveness, right? So we need to define how we view our competitive market and then pull data to make sure that our structures allow us to compete within that. And then career progression and internal equity really tie back to the job architecture work that Hannah will walk us through, but it's all about classifying and leveling our jobs and then showing to each employee how they can progress over time, clear expectations of what that growth looks like, and also putting some parameters and clarity to what does it mean to have internal equity? What are the influencing factors when it comes to determining pay? And again, internal equity doesn't mean everyone's paid the same. It means that when you are performing substantially similar work, you have the same opportunity and the same influencing factors are determining where you're paid within any given range. And all of that, again, supports us in being more transparent and having some of these candid conversations about pay. The punchline is we want people to understand why they're paid what they're paid and what they can do with that over time. And so ultimately, that is what kind of lends us to our success criteria on the right. People are showing up every day, and in an ideal setting, they are feeling valued. Again, they understand how their pay was determined and they feel it's fair. And so they're showing up every day, engaged, productive, and not seeking employment elsewhere, most importantly. And so the last couple bullets, the business tool for sustainability and cost planning. This is not cost cutting or cost savings. It's essentially saying paying our employees is one of our biggest expenses, right? And so we want to make sure that we're being proactive and intentional with how we're leveraging that budget and that we have the data that we need to be planful and sustainable in our approach. So planning for now and also planning for the future. Hey, Hannah, you're on mute.
I noticed that as I looked up. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to kick us off into the job architecture section. So this first slide that we have is all about our process. So for job architecture, it's not an organizational chart. So we're not talking about reporting relationships when we talk about job architecture. We're talking about classifying work based on what it is doing and the level of expectation that it has. And so that allows us to make sure, regardless of what area of a business a position works, if it's doing something substantially similar to a role in another area, they're classified similarly so that we can make sure that we've got that equity built into our system. So we look at org charts to help inform us. We also look at the job descriptions as well as the job matches we end up looking at for our external market surveys. And we review this on several different levels with the project team to make sure that we're building something that's going to help support the organization. And so this next slide is a little bit more behind the scenes about job architecture itself. So when I talk about job architecture classification, the first side of it is what is a position responsible for. So first we'll group positions into broad areas. Then we'll break those areas down into families. And then each family has a list of functions that's beneath it. So if I kind of give you an example, an area of our business might be business services. And then a family might be finance, but in the business services area, you might also have HR or IT, that type of thing. And then below the family of finance, one of the specific functions might be accounts payable. You might also see accounts receivable or accounting or finance as a specific function of work. So then the final piece, after we've identified what a position is responsible for and classified it, we have our career tracks, and we've created career tracks unique to you. This is an example of a people management type of career track where each career stage has a defined level of expectation. And as you move higher into those level of expectation, that is aligned to a progression in the salary structure or the pay plan to a higher grade level. So when you come to the end of it, we call it a position or a structure title. And basically you'll have the career stage with the function of work allows you to know what's the level of expectation, what is the type of work being done. So again, it might break reporting relationships, but it ensures that regardless of where you're reporting to or what you're doing, if you're doing something substantially similar to another area, we've taken a look at that and making sure that things are leveled and classified appropriately. So this slide is just taking you through the job architecture that we have built. So the blue letters with the white background at the top, these are our areas of the business. So we've got admin support, business services, asset management, community growth and development, public safety, public works, leadership, and then our library. The blue banners below that, those are the families. So like if I follow this through business services, you'll see finance and accounting, HR, legal, IT, public information, and business management are different families within that area. And then all the ones listed below, these are going to be the specific functions of work. And again, that's as specific as we can take each level. So this really allows us to kind of have a guide of what are all the different types of work that are being performed throughout the city. And so we pair that with our job architecture's career stages and career tracks. So what you'll see here is we've got a functional and professional track. So these are individual contributor roles. We've got our public safety, our fire rescue and police here. And then we've got our people management, so our management and leadership career tracks. Each career track has a typical type of work that falls within it, and each career stage has a unique definition. Each definition for every career stage includes the major job scope and responsibilities, the complexity and the level of impact for that role, as well as the education and the typical experience requirement for that level of work. And so if we just bring this whole kind of piece of it home, this slide is really supposed to articulate how you would use the job architecture in pairing it with the salary structure. So anytime we think about the job architecture, we say it's a living, breathing document, meaning if we were to create a new role or have the need to evaluate for a role, we want to come back to our job architecture and first see, does that function of work already exist across the city somewhere? And if so, let's make sure we treat it consistently. Or is this something new that we need to map in and make sure that we've planned for? So it all starts with the business case for a role. So what we always need to do is articulate why a position is needed and what is the gap that we need to solve for. So you can look on the outside. I've added just an example for you to be able to see, but really think about first, what is the gap that we're solving for? And what is it that the position is going to be bridging that gap? Then once you've articulated why you need it, what that gap is, we're going to use the job architecture to classify the role. So that's first saying, okay, if this is the problem, what is the function of work that solves that? And then what is the level of expectation that we need to pair with that to fully meet the need of the problem we're solving? Then that's finally when we'll get specific about who the appropriate candidate is and what type of talent we're looking for to fill this role. A lot of times when job architecture is missing in an organization, we tend to create positions around people without having a clear guidance of what it is that they're solving for. And this can lead to confusion both for the managers, but also for the new incumbents. So this really allows us to say, here's what we're looking for, go out and find the perfect fit in a person. And then the final step would be, now that we've got that mapped into our architecture, we can determine the appropriate compensation within the pay plan that way. Alrighty.
So jumping into the base pay structure foundation, the foundation itself ultimately is our market data. And so Understanding that salary surveys that are conducted by third parties, those continue to be the gold standard for benchmarking as a way of developing structure, setting pay. That is what we have used for this work. And so I do think it's important to acknowledge that the third party survey data, that's something that has to be purchased by employers. It's something that the data itself is mapped into by typically human resources departments and team members. And they're the ones who are making those connections between the work being performed and the survey data that's available. But we also live in a world of information transparency. We kind of have to strike the balance between open records requests and transparency that's already existing online. Also understanding we have the Sherman Antitrust Act that says, hey, we can't have different employers that are, colluding, essentially working together in a way that could be deemed anti-competitive. And so again, that's where these salary surveys come in, and we'll walk you through the steps over the next few slides of how we use those surveys to make sure the data that we're using to inform this study is accurate. So a big part of that comes down to job matching. And so for the surveys that we use, one of our requirements is that they must have survey job summaries. And so these survey job summaries essentially say, here's the key function or key functions of any given survey match, and here's the level of expectation. And so we compare those to the job descriptions that you all have, and we're looking for a 75% or more match. And then we can use adjustments to make sure that we are fully representing the job at the City of Minot. And so that could mean if you're wearing multiple hats, maybe you're doing accounts payable and accounts receivable, we can bring in matches that represent each of those hats and blend them together. So I think the biggest thing that we like to call out here is that title matching is really dangerous. Hannah and I have consulted on this team between, over 5 years for Hannah, almost 8 years for me. And what we have seen is that the same title can mean something wildly different in one setting to the next. And so it really is critical when we're pulling this data to focus on the key functions of the job, regardless of what we're calling it, to make sure that we're bringing in data for an apples to apples comparison. And so as a part of this work, we looked at 214 titles. Ultimately, there were 177 unique titles, but we had some that existed across different departments. And so we looked at each one of those individually to make sure we were identifying if there were any differences, that those were captured. And then we validated those with the project team as well. And so you can see we used multiple surveys here, including the Economic Research Institute Salary Assessor. What's great about this one in particular is it's actually a database versus an annually published point-in-time report. And so that data is updating every 6 weeks. It's about as timely as you can get. You can see from a data cut perspective, we looked at all industries and total responses in some cases. So this is going to bring in, especially for industry agnostic positions, it's going to bring in kind of the casting the most broad net, and that's going to include even for-profit market data. It's essentially saying any setting where this job exists, tell me where the data is coming in at. And then we have some more specific targeted industries that are more relevant. You can see that we had 541 matches across those 214 job titles, meaning each job has at least 2 job matches. And then where you can see the multiple data cuts, what that means is for ERI, for example, one match provides 4 data points for us to consider. And so if we have 2 matches, that's 8 data points for us to consider, which really increases our level of confidence in the market data and where we're moving forward with positioning each of the jobs in the pay structure. The other thing that we looked at was cost of living and cost of labor. And we call these out, a lot of times they're used interchangeably, but they are distinctly different metrics. And so when we talk about cost of living, we're talking about what each of us are paying for goods or services. So whether that's your mortgage or your rent, whether that's going to the grocery store, filling up your gas tank. And as we've all experienced, especially in recent years, this is really that inflation. and it can go up, it can go down, just depending on the current state of events and how those are influencing the market and supply and demand for any specific good or service that we're talking about. Compared to cost of labor, which is essentially telling us how is a specific type of work valued in a specific region. And so this is really looking at the supply and demand for those types of employees and those skills in that area. And so the cost of labor really continues to be the gold standard. This is what employers are universally using to inform where they're paying their positions, where they're setting their pay ranges. And so I mentioned these are used interchangeably. Ultimately, they're not connected, meaning what's influencing one to go up and down. You would think that those would be the same factors, but they actually move very independently. And if you step back and you look at data from the BLS, for example, over time, it shows just how disconnected they are as wages have gone up. So cost of labor has gone up in a pretty measured, consistent way over time. And cost of living has been very volatile. So it's had huge spikes where it's gone up. Then we've seen that with drops where inflation might come back down. And so the sustainability piece is very important for why cost of labor continues to be the gold standard for setting pay. And so when we talk about the connection that does exist between the two, I think what's important to acknowledge is that really the only connection is all of us as employees are experiencing both, right? So we're experiencing where our pay is being set, and then we're experiencing what it costs for us to live from one day to the next. And so we always, we believe that it's important for employers to be aware of their exact market conditions. And so when we look at the cost of labor, you can see in these tables, cost of labor is the first table up top. You can see the locations listed in that first column. And then we have salary thresholds going across the top in green. And so we look at this across the full spread of where we have employees just to understand if there's any differences. Often, and especially lately, we see some of the biggest differences at our lowest salary thresholds on the scale. So when we look at Minot, really across the board, we're hovering right around national average. So national average is 100%. That's our point of comparison. So in that first box, when you see 102.6, what that means is that our labor market in Minot for the 20,000 threshold is actually 2.6% higher than national average. And then as we get to the higher end of the scale, we actually trail off just a little bit, just by about 1.5%. But all of this is sitting right around national average. And when we compare that to our cost of living, we're actually positioned really favorably. So our cost of living trails national average, depending on the salary threshold we're looking at, from anywhere from 10 to 20%. And so again, some of the places where cost of living compared to cost of labor are problematic, you might see that the cost of labor is sitting around national average, but the cost of living is maybe 10 or 20% above national average. And that's where it presents a real challenge because, again, the money that we're making isn't going as far. So you can see the different locations that we looked at here. Ultimately, we looked at this in the work that Hannah had mentioned that we did in 2025 as well. Didn't see any significant differences in what we saw last year compared to this year, but ultimately we're sitting in alignment with the national average alongside Fargo, Bismarck, and Mandan based off of the cost of labor. So the next few slides to prepare us for outcomes, this is kind of our compensation crash course. And so we will talk a lot about pay ranges. And so we thought it might be helpful to define what that is and what it means. So essentially when we market price the positions, the median, the market value that we pull in becomes the midpoint of our range. And then we mirror the market spread for a job by setting a minimum and a maximum that are set percentage below and above what we've established as at our midpoint. And so the idea is the entire range is market. It's just market for varied levels of education, experience, and so on. And so a couple ways once we've established our range that we can look at the employee level and how they compare to market and where they fall within their range are compa ratio and range placement. So compa ratio takes the midpoint, takes the employee's rate of pay and divides it by the midpoint. And then range placement essentially converts your pay range to a scale of 0 to 100%. So if an employee is paid at the minimum of the range, their range placement is 0%. If they're paid at the maximum, range placement is 100%. If they're paid at the middle, it's 50%. And so I offer that to say there's not a specific goal to pay all employees at a range placement of 50% or at the top of the range. The intention is to say we pay every employee at the right place within the range based off of their years of experience, based off of their education and their skill set, their proficiency, those types of things, which could fall anywhere within the range depending on if someone is brand new to a role or if they've been doing it for decades. A couple other things to call out. The current structure itself, the step structure has 62 grades and each of those have 17 steps. So what that translates to is we have a 3% midpoint progression and 48% width, ultimately creating 93% overlap in our ranges. And so our recommendation is to use a structure where we're condensing the 62 grades down to 17, where we have more meaningful jumps, ultimately less overlap. And that's going to align us more closely to the market spread that I was talking with you about, and align us more with best practices from a structure architecture standpoint as well. And so when you look at the structure itself, you'll notice that the more junior career stages have a more narrow width, and then the more advanced career stages will have a wider width. And so that's ultimately allowing us to mirror what we see in the market data itself. For positions that people tend to gain proficiency in more quickly and often move up and into the next step more quickly, that's what's yielding the more narrow market spread compared to more advanced positions that sometimes take longer to gain proficiency in, and they also have lesser opportunity to move up as you kind of climb the ladder over time. That again means that we'll have greater market spread, and so we've built the structure to correlate with what we see in the market. And so for those of you who are visual, this gives you a little bit of an image or graphic to show you what that looks like. We have the position placement or the salary ranges and steps that are in the appendix of the presentation, but you can see by grouping where the different types of positions are falling within the structure. And so the last piece here before Hannah takes us into outcomes is to acknowledge a little bit more into the process. So we start very data heavy, right? We're doing the job matching, the validation of those positions, pulling in the raw market data and mapping into ranges. And then the other piece is that calibration factor. So we're looking at grade hierarchy within our functions. We're thinking about time and position. What does progression look like for us? We're also looking at the range placement of incumbents, identifying and flagging if we have any outliers and giving those a deeper look. And also we've conducted kind of this reality of the business review to make sure that what we're doing makes sense for us. So it's using benchmarks to give us that market awareness to do what's best for our employees. And so again, that position placement is included in the appendix, but these are hopefully helpful steps for you to understand of the process that we've followed to get to the point of making the recommendations that we will share with you today.
All right, so jumping into the outcomes section, first I want to start off with our compensation philosophy, which was essentially our guidance throughout the project. And so as we're doing this work, we want to make sure that we're creating that linkage between the organization's overall success and how that lends itself to employees' individual compensation success. And so really we know what Minot's mission is and what it's about. So the bullets that we have here are thinking about how we want our pay plan to support us. So we want to make sure it's strategic and competitive so that we're attracting, motivating, retaining, and rewarding the top talent that really helps us elevate our thriving and vibrant community. We want to make sure that this is a truly market-based salary structure so that that checks the externally competitive piece, and it allows us to be very proactive in any decisions that we need to make with compensation. We also wanted to make sure that the plan and that we set up is able to be consistent, fair, and with integrity so that we can be very equitable and transparent. And then the final piece that really was our guiding light is about career paths and making sure that we have kind of some direction around opportunities to grow and how we can acknowledge how people can continue to excel with the city throughout their career. And so with that in mind, this next slide is the step structure itself. So you'll see the grade starts at 10. It goes all the way up to 27. We don't have anything mapped in the lowest grade or above a grade 26. The step structure itself, step structures versus like a salary range type structure, which you tend to see in more for-profit or corporate environments, it's really helpful from the terms of internal equity, predictability, and transparency. You're able to see the table and see what your earning potential is over time. And it's helpful for leaders as they're budgeting and planning for what positions they have, what positions they might need, and the type of employee that they might need to fill it. So if you look at the steps here, they go from step 1 all the way up to step 13. So we've condensed the number of steps. And each step until you reach the midpoint of the salary range is 1 year and a meeting expectation performance evaluation. Once you hit the midpoint, our goal is to get us to that midpoint of the salary range at a faster pace. And then we move to a 2-year until we reach the range maximum along with that meeting expectation. Really, that's designed to mirror what we typically see occurring out in the market. So towards the middle of the range is really where we see a lot of that competition, not only in hiring, but just making sure that we've got talent aligned. And then true proficiency and development in the role takes a little bit more time. So that's how we've also incorporated some performance management into it, making that meeting expectations as a prerequisite step to movement. The other piece that we're proposing with this is the discontinuation of a probationary period compensation changes. So essentially when you're hired into the role, rather than receiving any type of compensation change at the end of probation, we're going to bring you into the salary range where we think you need to be for the work that you're doing. And so the next few slides are going to reflect the outcomes of our full-time employees. And so we'll take the next couple slides to really use that comp ratio and range placement metrics that Chelsea educated us on a few slides ago to talk about where we are and where we stand against the external market. So overall, the good news is 81% of employees are falling within this newly developed salary structure. So that means although we've kind of changed our landmarks and our structure, when we realign that back into our competitive ranges, most people are already in the rate or within the salary range. The table here that you'll see first is overall. So there's 453 employees that we have included in these analytics. The average comp ratio is saying, what is that average across all employees? So remember, if we took the rate of pay and divided it by the midpoint of the salary range, it would equal 1.0. So we're sitting at 0.97, which means we are falling slightly behind the median of the market when it comes to our overall pay practices. When we talk about that in terms of range placement, remember that's the 0 to 100 scale, where 50% would be aligned to the median value within the pay range. And so we're sitting about 41%. So again, you see we're sitting just behind market when we take a look at it from these two different metrics that we have. And so we've talked about the volume of people that are within the range, but these next two areas of the table are showing us our outliers. So currently we have 69 employees that are sitting under the minimum of the salary range. It's about 15.2% of the total population. And when we talk about the percent of payroll, we're talking about the payroll for compensation only, not total payroll. And so it's about half a percentage point. So the dollar to bring all those people who are under the minimum of the salary range up to the salary range minimum and get them in alignment with this new structure would be about $150,000. And then on the other side of the coin, we have over maximum, which we only have 14 people sitting above the maximum of the salary range. So that's about 3.1% of our population. You see this represented as a red number, which typically indicates a negative. It's telling us what we could potentially be overpaying compared to the market salary ranges we've established, but our recommendation is not to cut any salaries. There are definitely ways you can handle over maximum over time while maintaining a current rate of pay for your employee, and that's what we would advise to do. So all this to say, we're sitting a little bit behind market. Our average time in position across the organization is 3.9 years. So it's not time within the entire organization. It's time in the current role is on average 3.9 years. But we've got a range anywhere from 1 to 22 years in a position. So there is some variance. But I think it's always good to kind of see what is the average time and position for our population, especially when we think about where do we compare with market. So this next slide that I'll take you through is taking our job architecture that I walked you through and showing us how the range placement compares with the current pay plan, which is going to be our blue columns, and then where our employees will be with our green columns when we bring them into the new pay plan. So what we've done is we've gone through the process of mapping all the employees into the new pay plan, not only to get them to the closest step, but also to make sure we're maintaining equity in terms of not creating compression. So if the salary range itself slid up and we now have a group of people sitting towards the low end, we're not just going to dump them all into the first step, which is the closest. We're going to make sure that we map them into the new structure with the same type of spacing that we had before in the previous structure, and we maintain that equity. And so what you kind of take away from this, well, here, let me spend a little bit of time here. My x-axis, or my y-axis, I should say, goes from 0 to 100%. That's range placement. What you see across the x-axis on the bottom, first, these are the areas of the business, and then each of these are the different families across Minot. So then when you look at the blue, again, that's current range placement. It's going to be the percentage. The number in front of it is the number of people that fall in that bucket. And then the green column would be the new range placement once we align people into the appropriate step. So what you can see is we're hovering across the board in the second and third quartile, like somewhere between that 25-75 range for most of our areas and families on average. But what you'll also see is looking at the gap between new and current. The biggest jumps that you're going to see are in most of our frontline employees, and I'll show you that as we go through career stages. But what this kind of speaks to me and says is there's not one particular area where we're off. We've had consistency across our pay practices, but it really is the kind of the movement in the frontline workers and the comp ranges that we've seen shift year over year that are really driving some of the changes that we're recommending. When you see some of these that are sitting up higher above the midpoint of the range, these are associated with people who have high tenure within their role. So there is that correlation between time and position and range placement. So here's the career stage piece that I was alluding to. So right now your functional track and your professional track are what I have on the screen. And so really when I talk about the population that's most impacted, it's a lot of our frontline workers that are falling into this functional track. So you can see where the blue bar is and the amount of range placement increase is really a result of the salary range itself being needed to shift up and then maintaining the equity within the role itself. So this is not unlike what we're seeing across a lot of different labor markets and employers that we're working with currently. We continue to see base wages increasing. We continue to see high levels of competition for more entry levels of work. And so I'm not surprised to see that the biggest impact that we have is really going to be directly impacting our frontline workers or our entry level roles the most. These career stages, you're going to see fire, rescue, and police here. So again, we've got our changes from pre to post that you can see. I want to call out because I think the biggest jump on this page is with the police officer and senior police officer. We have updated the career stages so that this will be in one grade for this career stage. And so that's why you're seeing kind of the bigger jump here is because what was previously considered 2 levels is now going to be moved into that 1 pay range with that distinguishment. And then the last groupings, we have our management and our leadership. So you can see within this group, there's not huge changes being recommended across the board. Most of them are sitting pretty close to where they needed to be in terms of our updated salary ranges there. And so I'll bring us to costing. This kind of brings the minimum and the maximum data points that we looked at on that first table together back up on the board for you. But then it also brings into light the compression, which is bringing people not only into the salary range, but into the appropriate place of the salary range. So when you look at the annualized cost, it's about 1.12 million, about 3.4% of your compensation payroll in adjustments. That is inclusive of the bring to minimum cost. So we're not adding that to this. It's saying not only to bring to minimum, but to bring people into the salary range based on the compression and time and position. This would be the value to do that. So we have a couple summary slides that we wanted to put up here because I know we've got two kind of different perspectives in our audience right now. So the first one is really a city council summary. So what is the key takeaway if this is kind of the perspective or the way that you're hearing this content today, is really about the pay plan adjustments that we're recommending today are adjustments that help us bring us current with the current labor market. So it helps us remain competitive and operationally stable. It's not an enhancement to the competitive positioning. We're not saying to jump out and exceed or to lead the market. We're saying this is what meeting the current market looks like with the data that we've pulled. So there's been a lot of shift. I mentioned this earlier in external labor market. So it's not driven by any like internal program changes. Again, we've aligned our job architecture to make sure that we've got that paired nicely with the updated pay plan. And then it's an operational cost reality. So, you know, the kind of metaphor that we think about is like getting the oil change on your car. When we talk about updating your salary structure, that's something we say that you should take a look at and touch every single year, just like you would update your oil in your car every so often. If you're not updating it annually, ultimately something down the line might have to be fixed as a result of not staying on top of your pay plan changes year over year. So really just making sure that this is just an operational cost. It's not a pay increase initiative, so there's nothing tied to performance or merit increases or any type of expansion of our compensation program. Again, this is just to bring our salary ranges up to a market competitive level. There is a risk of inaction. Anytime you leave your salary structure untouched for another year, it does increase your risk of turnover and vacancies, which can decrease your efficiency and your ability to yield the work that needs to be done. It can also ultimately lead to higher long-term costs. So the costs associated with recruitment or other people having to pull overtime or service disruption are also true risk of inaction. So why we think now is the time, it allows us to be reactive or allows us to be proactive as opposed to reactive. So pushing this, you know, down the line just leads to increased costs and complexity later. The market lag continues to widen. So every year that you don't touch your salary structure, you risk having a further gap between where your employee's at and where the market is. And then it's just about making sure our community has the continuity of the services that we provide to them. So then the second summary slide that I have for you is from the perspective of an employee, because I know we've got several with us today. And so the key takeaway or thing that we're hoping that you're here from this presentation is that we're trying to update this pay structure to better reflect the market while also maintaining that step-based plan. The step-based plan allows us to really know what's coming year over year in terms of your pay. So there's a lot of transparency that's there. So what's changing is we've adjusted the salary ranges and the steps themselves to better align with what you see externally. We're changing that progression through the front half. So the goal is to get you to the midpoint faster. And that really aligns with what we see externally in the market, with the midpoint kind of being a really good reference point of where we want to try and get our talent to. And then employees may receive pay adjustments if their current pay is falling below the updated step level. So again, we've gone in and made that connection of where you're at and where you would be. So what would change is you would receive a pay adjustment if the pay is aligned to the next step level. What's staying the same is it's still a step-based pay system. So other types of companies might use things that are salary ranges. So there's not that clear defined movement over time. But this step-based structure allows us to continue to have that level of transparency that you're used to. And the movement through the steps will continue to follow established practices. So you're going to know what it takes year over year when you move from one step to another. What you can expect if the pay plan is adopted is, I know the HR team is very dedicated to making sure that we're clearly communicating how your pay or your step placement is affected if these changes roll out. We want to make sure that we have continued consistency on how the progression within that step system works. And we're also committed to making sure we're looking at this year over year so that we're able to fine tune moving forward and it doesn't feel like big jumps every couple of years or so. So with that, I will kind of pause and say thank you for having us for this morning. And then Kelly, I don't know if there's anything you want to add or if we're opening it up to questions, I'll kind of pause there.
Thank you, Hannah and Chelsea. I think I'll turn it over to Miranda and Kelsey, and I will open it up for questions.
Thank you. I have a couple questions before we open up for public comment. And Kelly, you may want to come back up because one of them is for you. Can you, I know you're fresh in this job, you've been here a year. Can you tell us the historical reason why this is being reviewed? I know council was pushing more to look at merit-based pay versus step placement. And then is this something you kind of came into, or was this something that you kind of initiated when you came into your role?
Thank you. That's a great question. So when I was hired on, one of the interview questions was, how would you approach performance-based pay in an organization? And so part of the directive and initiative given to me is that council is looking to move towards a performance-based pay system or performance-based awards. In that, we were asked to take a look and make sure that our positions are appropriate. For me, it's a bit of a chicken and an egg, right? Do you build the performance-based metric system, or do you make sure your pay structure is appropriate first? And so we chose to take a look at the pay structure first, make sure that all of our positions were being graded and paid appropriately. From that, the feedback from the city manager, as we were working with Heron Palmer, was to do our best to mirror the GS system that the federal government uses with the steps and the changes in steps and the change in the timing, I think is the better appropriate phrase, of the step increases and builds less grades, fewer steps that proceed over time and lays a foundation to award performance should we move in that direction, i.e. if somebody is exceeding, they would be able to skip a step as a reward or get some sort of performance-based award metric. Now, let me be very clear, we are not there yet. This is the foundational step to move towards the directive given by council to look into performance-based pay.
So just to recap, the thought process would be to try to adapt towards that performance-based. Could be you could skip a step. That's kind of what you're hoping for with this type of a pay plan?
That would be long-term, yes. And that's, realistically, we haven't even built performance-based metrics. All of that is takes months to years.
And I'm going to ask a couple follow-up questions. I received a lot of feedback from people. I realize some people aren't comfortable maybe approaching you or asking at the microphone. So if you don't mind, I might just ask these questions.
Go for it.
The biggest concern that I heard was that the maximum for some employees would be changing dramatically, both up or down. And I'm wondering if there's a way to retain the current maximum on the existing pay scale, but adopt the minimum, because we know that appears to affect the largest section of employees with regards to competitive marketability for those junior career stages and entry positions. So is there a way to essentially freeze the top line for some of our longest tenured employees? And I understand in some positions, and yours might be one of them, where that maximum might be, if we kept what we have now, a little bit on the lower side than what's being proposed.
Sure. And the data essentially comes back to what was given out by market. And so it can be done. I would be hesitant to recommend that without speaking to my compensation experts. I wouldn't want to put our employees in a position where long-term they are not being able to be paid correlation to market. I understand that we work in a civil service industry. Market isn't always going to be what it is. It's government, right? And so we know that the pay isn't always going to be the best. I can speak for myself personally. I would have no problem freezing my high wage lower than it is now. I recognize when I came into this industry that the pay isn't going to be the same as out in the private sector. It's a choice that I have made, and I would guess that it is a choice that others have made. We all sort of choose where we work, and so without consulting with my experts, I'm open to the idea. Logically, it makes sense. My concern would be skewing of the pay bands long term and being back where we are 3 years from now.
I'm concerned on the compression side of it as well, but
Yeah.
I know that it was brought up to me a few times, so I wanted to make sure that we acknowledged it. The other question is the current structure that we have in place. How long has that been in place?
24 years.
24 years. And then are we struggling to fill positions currently? And if so, what level are we finding the most challenge to fill?
We are struggling on the frontline entry-level workers, continuously struggling to find. I think we've got a heavy equipment operator position open pretty much all the time. It feels like in my year here, it's those frontline entry-level workers, which is where you see in the pay plan the adjustment is the highest. It's that frontline, hard to fill. It's entry-level police. It's the folks who protect us and keep our cities safe and keeps our cities clean and take care of us day to day.
And then I have one final question. She had mentioned removal of the probationary period pay. How long is that, and what kind of impact is that put into the overall numbers that we were presented?
Yes, I believe so. So the change in the civil service language proposal was to remove the language where it says the probationary period is 6 months or 1 year, and to read minimum of 6 months up to 18 months. The idea being that if we're bringing people in more appropriate to pay and market once they come off of probation, there is no step increase. Right now, a person gets 2 steps when they come off probation, which is a 5% increase. If your base pay is already higher, you would be eligible to participate in the pay plan once you're pulled off of probation, as is, without that pay bump. Now, that being said, my brain is not braining. I'm so sorry. That being said, the other protection that you get is under civil service once you come off of probation. It also allows some of that flexibility for a manager. If you hired somebody asked me yesterday, what if you hire somebody on January 15th? Does that mean they're not eligible for a pay raise for 2 years? The answer to that quite shortly is no. If they're a good employee, you're probably going to know before that 1 year mark. This allows managers to have a little more autonomy. And again, going back to that performance and how somebody is performing and doing in their job, pull them off probation prior to the January 1 mark so that they're eligible to participate in the pay change compensation structure.
Just to clarify, I thought the recommendation was to remove the probationary pay structure and just go straight into your normal entry-level position?
Yeah, you would go in there. It wouldn't be a probationary pay bump. There would still be a probationary period, but there would be no pay bump when you come off of probation.
Do you think removal of that probationary pay period would help to fill some of those entry-level positions that are left open? Because obviously they're beginning to be paid at a lower rate.
Candidly, yes, because the pay range will go up. And so if this is adopted, your starting pay will be slightly higher. There's less of a need to incentivize somebody with the dangle of a carrot of 5% after 1 year if you're already paying them closer to market. And if they're off probation within a year, they're eligible to participate in the pay plan.
All right, I'm going to see if any of the other committee members have any questions before we turn you loose. Kelsey or Scott, do either of you have any questions for Kelly before we let her move off to the side and open up to public?
I don't. I think I want to hear some public comment first. I do have some questions, but I would rather hear public comment and then
Great.
throw mine in if that's okay.
Fair.
I think I probably had the largest amount of calls, so that's why. And like I said, I only asked the questions because I know there are some people who may not feel comfortable coming up. So
That's great.
we'll let you sit down, and then we'll open this up to public comment. So anybody's able to come up and speak, I just ask that you state your name and be respectful of the time because the room is occupied at 11. So
Good morning, Commission members. My name is Jenna Zielinski. I'm the Comptroller in the Finance Department. I addressed this body a little over a week ago, and I stood before you and expressed some concerns that the recommended action in front of you was premature. Employees saw that pay plan the day before, the same time you guys saw it. The agenda was posted on the 16th of June. The meeting was June 17th. It was also mentioned at that meeting last week how long the current pay plan was in effect, which thank you for asking that question, so we got some clarity, 24 years. A proposed pay plan that affects 429 employees, that's changing something that's been in effect for over 2 decades, and employees get notified 1 day in advance of you taking action on it. The concerns I'm here to express this morning revolve entirely around the timeline of events and the lack of change management that's occurred. Some of these comments are my personal opinions, and some are the concerns that employees have voiced to me since I stood before you 8 days ago. Many employees just don't know enough to ask the right questions. Many employees just don't feel knowledgeable enough in the subject to come up here and speak to you. They don't want to seem foolish or embarrass themselves or feel stupid. If you know me, it takes a lot for me to be embarrassed. So here I am speaking on their behalf. Before I dive into the timeline, I do want to put on the record that I'm privy to these discussions. I was aware of this change coming. I help the city manager and the HR team and the finance director prepare the budget every year. I'm in these conversations. So I'll take a little bit of ownership in not being actively involved in pushing for organizational change management. I agree with the compensation structure that Heron Palmer has presented. The condensed structure makes sense. We currently have 62 grades and 17 steps. It's not a sustainable plan. Unfortunately, given my position in the finance department, I am painfully aware of the budget pressures that we are under. A 3% property tax cap and competing priorities across all departments with a very limited pool of resources. It's my everyday, and I feel that pressure every day. The timeline. Heron Palmer has originally presented this back to our city council on July 7th of 2025. It was presented during the city manager's report. The implementation at that time was set for 2027, with the option of looking at a pay for performance or a performance-based award system. If you listen back to that section of the city council meeting, which I did last night, a common phrase is mentioned by council members and city leadership: change management. How important it is. How important it is to get employees buy-in. How important it is to take it slow. How important it is to communicate the upcoming changes. How important it is to build an overall understanding of the changes and how it affects each and every employee. Fast forward to June 10th of 2026, our originally scheduled civil service meeting. That was inevitably canceled. June 16th, the pay plan document proposal gets released to employees and the Civil Service Commission. The following day, you are expected to approve it. I came up and said, please wordsmith that a little bit and add draft to ease your employees. Today, where you, I hope, hear from many employees. And if you approve today, it moves on to the city council and it's presented to them July 6th. And if that inevitably gets approved, it's within a recommended budget on July 16th. From June 16th to July 16th, 30 days. You gave employees 30 days to review it, 30 days to buy into it, 30 days to understand how it affects them. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think they know. And how will it be implemented? What happened between July of 2025 and June of 2026 to prepare and educate your employees on this upcoming change? What change management efforts were taken to properly implement this change? I can't answer that. The citizens of this great city and our city council, rightfully so, demand transparency and accountability of this organization. So why shouldn't your employees demand the same? I strongly encourage you to recommend an implementation of this compensation structure for fiscal year 2028. Your employees need to have time to educate themselves on this change. And this is not a change in a health plan that's changing your maximum out of pocket or changing the coinsurance percentages that affects a small pool of employees. This change affects all of us and the money that we take home to feed our families. 429 of us. I'll remind everyone in this room and those online, this is a Civil Service Commission meeting. You are a civil service employee. You have certain protections, and this body represents you as an employee. Do not be discouraged to come up and speak your piece today. If there's something weighing on you, I encourage you to come up here and put it on the record. This is your opportunity to speak. If you don't have the courage to come up here, if you're standing behind me or if you are on Teams, raise your hand if you agree with anything that I just said. Thank you for listening and the opportunity to address you today.
Thank you, Jenna. we have anybody else that would like to come up? Anybody at all?
A little taller than I am. Hello, good morning. My name is Maria Romanik, and I am the Operations and Maintenance Manager at the airport. And I spoke at council a couple weeks ago regarding some concerns regarding employee benefits and how there has been a seemingly steady decline in recent years for benefits. And this one, I reiterate everything that Jenna said. I have nothing prepared up here, but I reiterate everything Jenna just shared. This impacts all city employees, every single one of us, and what we take home, what we ultimately spend back in our community. So this impacts everybody, not just the 429 people. So keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, I'm talking to Mike. I'm Zach Smith. I work as a mechanic for us. As was noted, the amount of time we had to really go over this was super short. I went through it last night and I understand parts of it, right? Now, there's a ton of it I don't understand. Plus, some of that's just my position within the company or the city. The part that really concerns me the most is that we keep talking about putting the compensation for how you're working later in effect when it's already there. It's in this pay plan. Where everything says meet expectations. And those expectations are very unclear with what I read through it. That if we are going off the job duty, then you're looking at, so with the mechanics, we have 4 of us. If that job duty is all it is for the expectations, is it on the bell curve between the 4 of us, or is just all 4 of us meet them? That we all do different duties, technically pertaining to what we're good at, right? And so what is the expectations that you are for each year? And then, if you're meeting midpoint, you're at 7, right? Or 7 years in. Then you wait 2 years for meeting expectations. You didn't get that. So now you're waiting 4 years before you get the next pay increase again. That's 4 years of just dealing with the same pay again, doing more work, trying to get to that point again. So trying to find more clarity on that would be very beneficial for us, is what is this expectations going to look like if it's going to be based upon us getting an increase every year too. That's all I got.
Thank you. Thank you, Zach. Anybody else? Come on up.
Good morning. My name's Alan Chesed. I work at the landfill. The only thing I wanted to point out is that none of the employees have seen their individual pay, so they cannot run numbers. They have not seen it to do the math to figure out where this benefit helps them or hurts them or hinders them. So I guess I would just ask on behalf of us employees to maybe pump the brakes and get the individual numbers to the employees so we can see what we have and where we're going from there. So
Great point.
that out.
Thank you, Alan. Don't be shy.
Ben Koffel, City Minot Public Works.
Ben, can you speak into the microphone just so everybody can
Sure,
hear
why
you on
not?
Teams too?
Ben Koffel, City Minot Public Works. Can we go over COLA in this and how cost of living would come into play? I look at this as a promotion or a raise going to the right. Is cost of living going to come into play on this as a guarantee?
Great question. Kelly, are you able to address that, or do we need to pull in the ladies from Heron Palmer?
Thank you. I'm happy to address that. The table is set up so that should City Council approve it, we will recommend every year that there be a CPI inflationary adjustment to the table based on whatever the CPI was for the prior year. This table was aged up that 3% for 2027. So they took the 2026 numbers, they applied a 3% across the board CPI adjustment to every single position. My recommendation for future state would be every year we recommend that CPI, and then City Council will choose whether or not they're going to apply that. In terms, I wanted to answer Zach quick while I'm here. We do currently, all of our reviews are we have 3 stages. There's needs improvement, successful, or exceeds, or exceptional, I believe. So currently, in order to qualify for the step increase on our current pay plan, you do have to have a meets or higher on your review and not be on a performance improvement plan. So whether or not that was explained appropriately down the line prior to my arrival here, I can't answer for that, but there is that performance-based piece already being done in our reviews and step increases.
Just a question on that. If somebody is on a PIP, a performance improvement plan, how long are they on that? Is it
Anywhere from
3 months, 6 months?
Anywhere from 3 to 6 months, typically.
So if their annual review comes into play during that time frame, is there any caveats to that? Because I mean, what if they're 2 days from being off of their PIP and they're coming up on renewal or review?
It's all humans, and there's definitely some thought and consideration given to those things. Absolutely.
Thank you. Looks like we have a question online. I'll read this one. It comes from Kyle Schill. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name correct. When it comes to when it comes to highly competitive markets such as public safety, do we feel this pay plan proficiently addresses the struggles of recruitment and retention issues due to being the lowest paid in the state? Do we have any question or answers to that? If not, we can just add it to our list of questions.
This was compared to government services at a state level, government services at a city level. And so it's important when you're looking at the metric to know that it's based on the midpoint. It is market. Market is the midpoint number. When we go out to market, midpoint is that median range. And so we've built down from there. I feel it gets us closer to where we've been in the past to be at the right level. Historically, in my time here, we haven't needed to hire any firefighters. I think we have some coming in soon, but that's the first round of hiring. Courtney, am I correct on that? Is this the first time we've opened it up in my year here? What?
Probably the second time.
Probably the second, okay. And we've done some stuff to address hiring needs on the PD side as well. Additionally, we can... I'm not against working with departments individually to talk about how we can incentivize recruiting. A wage is only one component of a job. There's benefits, there's PTO, there's all these other pieces. So wage is one piece, and I think it gets us closer to market in that sense.
And just to follow up on that with regards to PD, and I know we've got some members here as well, our body has made recommendations to council which have been adopted to help kind of remove some of that logjam with specifically to the recruiting side, which has been beneficial, from suggestions from the PD and Chief Fry. So, if we're running into the same types of issue on the fire department side, I would encourage them to work with HR and work with the Civil Service Committee to try to look at ways to remove some of those barriers as well, because it shows to be fairly effective on the police side right now too. So thank you. Looks like we have another question here from Luke Tillema. I would like to understand the amount of time evaluating the City of Minot Code of Ordinances for this study. It appears there is some sort of confusion about the duties and authority to the extent that some positions appear to be misplaced throughout the study. I'm not sure if that's a question for Heron Palmer again or Kelly.
We were approved to do the project in March, and so all of the job descriptions were shared with Heron Palmer in March. It wasn't compared directly to Code of Ordinance per se. It was based on each job description, and so I'm happy to take any feedback individually right now on any positions you feel may be incorrectly placed based off of job description and why. My door is wide open, my ears are wide open. I'm happy for feedback.
Great. Other questions or comments? Just to clarify, Kelly, I know you're over there, but you said that when did Heron Palmer begin this study? It was March?
Correct. We were approved funding in March for this project.
Perfect. Thank you. Don't be shy. There are no bad questions.
Hello, my name is Sharon. I'm with the airport. I'm very shy at public speaking, so I might chop this up. With our current playpen, I want us to make sure we don't be premature and not talk to every employee about how this will affect our retirements. So with that being said, would it be more beneficial with what we're trying to go forward through? And how would that all overlook with our retirement if we have to wait after the midpoint every 2 years? If you
That's a
get
great
my drift.
question. Yeah, great question. It's definitely, I don't think there's probably a straight answer for that one right now, but that is definitely a good point to consider. Any other comments?
Hello, Dale Plessis from the Minot Police Department. I noticed a couple of people with their hands up, so I just wanted to make sure you knew
Oh,
online that they
thank
were
you.
there. But I just want to reiterate what Jen said about having time. I've been scrambling to review the program myself and make sure that my employees have exactly the right information, you know, not something that's misleading. So more time would be helpful in that. And I would suggest when I look at it, I mean, it looks like the starting points are lower, and I'd like to get some information on why that is. You know, the step ones from where they were are lower than the step ones from before. And that's the entry level. So I'm trying to figure out how it equates to them being paid at market.
Good points. So I know earlier there was a question asked for people to raise their hands if they agreed with Jenna's statements. I'm not sure how many of the hands that are up are still that, but if you are wishing to speak, I'm not sure, are we able to cue them in to speak? Okay, most of the hands went away, other than one. We've got some shy people. Maybe they've all gone away. Oh. So we have hands up here, it looks like, for a few employees. If you want to speak, we can unmute the mic. We've got somebody that just walked up, so let's hear from the gentleman at the dais at the microphone here. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kevin Broughton. I'm with the Street Department. You know, recruitment and retention, that's pretty huge for us. We've lost a lot of workers to the county, DOT, because of lower wages, better benefits. You know, it seems like this pay plan is more leadership heavy. Seems like anything above a foreman are getting about a 4% increase per year. And from the worker bees entry level and up, it's about a 3.5%. You know, the guys that work nights, weekends, holidays, doing all the work so that the leadership's phones don't ring. That's the, I don't know. This pay plan doesn't affect me, but I'm concerned with our current employees. Because I know county, DOT, they have platinum benefits. I mean, paid, mostly paid, so.
From the county perspective, we actually just lost one to the DOT as well. So it's a challenge, and we've lost from the county back to the city as well. If you're not aware, I'm a county commissioner also, but it is a challenge. So.
And we're kind of becoming a training center. You know, we'll get you your CDL. We'll train you on equipment, and then in a couple of years you can go to the greener grass, make about $6-7 more an hour, have better benefits. So I'm concerned with our worker bees, and if we can do anything about that, that'd be great.
I share your concern. Thank you. Looks like we have another comment here. Jenny, and I don't want to pronounce your name incorrectly. Jeannie? Okay. A few years ago, a job market study was done. Several positions had received pay increases. I wanted to know why there is a discrepancy between that pay plan and the current proposed pay plan by Heron Palmer for certain positions. We'll catch you.
Very candidly, I cannot answer that. I have been here for 1 year and 22 days, so 1 year and three weeks. I'm happy to go back and take a look. I did not do those pay studies in the past. Last year, Heron Palmer did not do a pay study, and so Jeannie, I will get that answer to you. But I want you to know that I hear you, and I'm happy to do the research for you.
Thanks, Kelly. Come on up.
Hello, how you doing? My name is Layman Skinner. I'm with the street department, work under leadership of Kevin. And I am the CDL trainer, and it is frustrating. Like you say, train people up and lose them. And I really try to keep them and teach them, and they learn, and they get trained, and then we lose them because of pay, benefits, and so on. So I hope we could resolve it and fix it to a point to where we can retain the people that we train, because I'm doing it over and over and over and over. So we want to try to get it fixed and take care of the people that we have. So I just want to say thank you.
Yep, and I'll just reiterate, the cost to hire and train people is pretty tremendous. So it's cost prohibitive to keep bringing people in, to train them up, and then for them to leave to other job opportunities.
Online training, classroom training, hands-on training, behind the wheel training, and I got to make sure that everything is documented and correct. And if something's not right, I got to communicate with DOT, other agencies and stuff like that. So it become a lot. So we just want to try to resolve it, retain the people we have, and take care of everybody, so everybody be happy.
And your name is Leonard?
Layman Skinner,
Layman, okay.
Lemann Skinner, Skinner.
Thank you, Layman.
All right, thank you.
Oh, Kyle had a follow-up question. Sorry, I didn't see that there. During the study, were there any comparatives as to the average tenure on how Minot's roughly 4 years compares to the regional and national average?
We did not look at tenure. We looked at market pay for median income. We did not look at tenure and roll.
Thank you. Looks like the city attorney, Steph Stahlheim, provided some information on Code of Ordinances. She referenced the ordinance that states that the commission shall take final action with respect to the proposed pay plan within 60 days of its receipt thereof. When did the commission receive the pay plan, and where are we at in that 60-day window? We received the pay plan, I believe, a week and a day ago, the same time the employees did.
Jennifer Ekman, I'm the airport director. My question is, nowhere in the pay plan does it talk about the hiring of employees and what step they would start within the range. If there's flexibility for the hiring managers to choose that step within the first 5 steps or 3 steps or 2 steps, something like that, it would be appreciated to be added to that plan.
Good comments. Anyone else care to approach? There are no bad questions. Or comments, for that matter.
Hi, I'm Jesse Hoffer. I'm in the engineering department. My question is, it might be a dumb one. We had some career ladder positions that on the current pay scale, they go from I don't know the exact number, but say 52 to 54 to 56. And with this condensed structure, they all kind of end up on the same number pay grade wise. I just want to make sure what's the best way that they, as they move up that career ladder on this new one, that those steps are still just as substantial, I guess. Mm-hmm. That'd be my main question.
Yep, that's a good question. I don't know if we have an answer for that one, but.
Thank you, Jesse. Great question. So we looked at the career ladders, and some of the career ladders are based on time and position, and that is the only requisite to move to the next step in the career ladder. We did our best to place those in similar grades. The language in the pay plan says that it's a 5% minimum increase or one step with a minimum of 5%. So if you get your career ladder, you would move one step to the right, or if it's less than 5%, it would be 2 steps.
I have a question before you leave with regards to Ms. Ekman's.
Oh, sorry, I'm a liar. Thank you, Monica. I was speaking about promotions. Career ladders are 1 step.
Got it.
So if you get your career ladder in June, you get your 1 step, and then you're eligible to participate in January 1 for your next step.
Perfect. With regards to the question that was previously posed to us within hiring and the step at time of hire, and do the departments have flexibility in bringing people in at different grades? How does that apply to the current pay plan?
Currently, there is openness and flexibility. It is not written as a policy anywhere, and so I can tell you that in my position, I came in at higher than a step 1 in the police department as part of the hiring changes that we've made. We've allowed flexibility to come in at a higher than a step 1. Some of that is department specific, who have always followed the rigor of the steps and the intention of civil service, which is rewarding time and position and tenure with the city. That being said, there have been cases made in many departments and in many areas that if somebody has experience somewhere else in a similar or same role, you don't have to hire them at a step 1. And so I would encourage leaders, managers, employees to come talk to us as they're hiring in employees, and we can talk about placement and role.
In the new plan or the proposed plan, would that have the same flexibility, or would that be more rigid?
It would have the same flexibility.
Anyone else care to come forward or have questions online?
Hi, April Shawbrook. I currently work in the parts department. Reading through the proposal draft, it mentions that the anniversary dates are officially becoming January 1 once completed the probationary period. What is the intent and incentive behind coming in at any point throughout the year, as opposed to, say, looking at when is best to hire for those? I'm not exactly sure how to ask this question, I guess. But what is the benefit and purpose of that?
That's a good question.
Great question. That language is a carryover from the pay plans in the past, where once you are pulled off of probation and become a civil service employee, everybody's anniversary date in terms of review is January 1, so that everybody gets their same eligibility to participate in the step change on January 1. Does that make sense?
I would suspect that makes it easier for budgeting as well.
100%.
Yep. See, these are all great questions. If you've got something in your head, I would encourage you to come up and mention it.
Josh just asked a great question. So if you get hired in February under this new proposed plan, you could go almost 2 years without getting a pay increase. And again, I come back to the flexibility in the probationary period. So if you're hired in February, you've hired somebody, you know that they're going to be a great fit. Typically, you kind of know that stuff. Somebody's going to show their true colors within the first 6 to 8 months. It gives you as a leader and a manager the ability to pull somebody off probation in time for that step increase. Does that make sense?
And on top of that, the proposal would eliminate the probationary pay.
Correct.
So they
but
would
yeah.
come in, rather than coming in at that probationary pay and waiting to go up to the regular pay, they would come in at the standard pay.
Correct.
Nick Rennells with sanitation. So how does that affect then, conversely, with somebody who's per se hired in August? I mean, could you take them off that probationary period before December? Or is that just, so then they're gonna go 18 months without a raise?
That's a great question, Nick. Yes, if somebody's hired in like July, August, it could be up to 18 months. However, the idea behind the proposed pay plan is that the pay is closer to market, and so somebody's not feeling the strain of that lower pay. You know, I think of our light equipment operators. I think we hire at, what, $19 an hour, and then we pull them off probation and it's $20.45. Is that accurate? Yeah, and so if the starting pay is a little bit higher, they may wait longer for that increase, but their pay is more equitable to begin with.
Since you're up there, I have a question too. So, you know, we're going to make some type of recommendation. What it's going to be, I don't know. Council is going to take this up and make some type of recommendation specifically for budgeting purposes. As we were given by, I think it was Jenna, the dates on that. After July 16th, generally the budget isn't set in stone until, I'm not sure when
August
your
10th.
budget, August? Could changes still be made between now and August, or is that not
We
able
would
to be
have to have
changed?
them approved by you. We can make recommendations and we can look at it. And if you as a civil service committee say, let's meet again and review this prior to the finalized initial budget presentation in August. And Dave, correct me if my date is wrong, but I think it's August 10th is the preliminary budget is due. So if we meet prior to that, there could be changes is my understanding. And again, I want to go back to this is proposed. I was given a set of directives to build a pay plan within the parameters that were given by city council and the city. And so this is what we came up with to try and build an equitable pay plan long-term to support the goal of performance-based awards that was given to us.
I appreciate your office's work on this. I understand this is a tough thing. Anytime you start talking about, you know, people's pay and benefits, there's, you know, inevitably going to be an emotional response to it, rightfully so. I mean, this is how we all live and thrive in our communities, right? So I appreciate everybody from coming here, being online, being part of the conversation. I also express some of the same concerns with the timing on this. I'm not going to be candid at all about it. I think it's kind of fast. And I really struggle with, you know, if we do adopt it, I know that the council has some serious financial constraints, so adopting it very likely is going to be challenging from a financial aspect. With that said, I'd like to ask the same question that Jenna did. Of the people that are here or online, if you'd raise your hand, if you would like it just to stay as it is right now. And I would caveat that with, you know, maybe a continued conversation. I know, Jenna, your recommendation was to implement it in 2028, but I do think there are potentially some changes that need to be made. And, you know, maybe this is a year-long work in progress where, you know, HR department is working towards hearing from everybody and meeting some of these questions and challenges that are being presented, and they're very good. But I do have the same concerns about the timing on it. So I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of that. Scott, I know you're online. Do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, so very much that is the direction I was heading as I look at all of this as well, was I was even comparing it back to when the change to the PTO system, which I know is still controversial, but that process, there was a lot of meetings held between department heads, between meetings. There was an entire committee set up around it. I mean, there's a lot of work that went into that. It definitely wasn't squeezed into a relatively quick period of time, and that wasn't even under the extreme budget constraints that we're under right now. And, you know, potentially punting this to city council, which is under a huge amount of budget constraints right now with additional spending issues. I think that first off, I want to thank all of the city employees who stood up and talked today. And I understand it's sometimes hard to stand up and talk in public and do that. And I also want to apologize for my camping attire that I'm wearing today. Today was our family vacation, and I'm coming to you live from the state park up here in Lake Metagoshi. So, I appreciate you all coming, but my concern is just how quickly this comes up, and and adding that in. So I do wonder if our best proposal wouldn't be to do this. Now, seeing the message from Stephanie saying that we have to take action on this within 60 days, I wonder about the legalities of, is one of the actions okay to recommend to City Council that we put this forward for the year 2028, and then spend the next year having conversations with city employees, spend the next year tweaking it, spend the next year getting that to the individual employees about what that means for their positions, making potentially individual changes based on the more finite details of it, which we've heard from a couple of employees, and moving forward with it. That would be probably where my gut is on this right now.
Thank you. Kelsey, do you have any questions or comments?
Kind of like to echo what Scott said.
One moment. Let's catch Brittany first.
Miranda, Kelsey, members of the commission, I just have one recommendation and request if you guys, and I'm in support of that. I think, you know, from an organizational change management standpoint, giving opportunities to employees to review the pay structure, provide any documentation that they may have that we didn't looking at this, I think that that's all appropriate. My request to the commission at this point is, if we are punting, for lack of a better term, is that you guys make a recommendation for us to bring to council as far as what we are going to do for increases. As you know, the last 2 years, we have not implemented the full market plus step adjustments in the pay plan. Those have been, for lack of a better term, operational costs that have not come due. There are a lot of employees that haven't seen market adjustments or their full grade, increases in 2-3 years. So I would like to see the commission make a recommendation on the current pay plan of what they would recommend if it's the full increase, or how they want to address that, if they want to apply a COLA to that, or what the recommendation would be on the offset. And I understand today that there are not numbers for that. You wouldn't know what that is, but I would like to see that addressed and us to have a recommendation from the commission to put forward to council.
Just a question to follow up on that. You mentioned COLA and then the increases. Are they set as usually percentages with regards to what's sent to council, like a 2.5% plus COLA, or?
So historically in the pay plan, and the way this kind of worked is institutionally, there were benchmarked positions, and every 3 years, each position, it was kind of a 3-year rotation. So every position in every category wasn't getting reviewed every year. It was a 3-year rotation, which, Miranda, as you know, looking historically backwards, and Scott, that kind of led to us playing catch up and kind of some big investments by the time we got to that 3rd year. So those would happen on that triannual basis along with your normal step increases. So and I might not have this exactly correct, so forgive me, but the last 2 years it was either, you're not getting the full, it's a hybrid. You're either getting your step increase or the market, whichever's better, but not both. Or, believe last year we just did whatever your normal step increase would be, that's what you got. We didn't do any market adjustments. So we have not done COLA in the past, so I can't speak to how that would apply. That's not currently kind of in there. However, because we are on the year 3, and if there's a delay, which again, I'm not in opposition to doing so, I just want to see how we are going to address some of the operational gaps in pay and market, and how we can address that within the current pay plan for the year. And I think a discussion and recommendation from council with input of our fantastic employee body who is here today would be a great position to start from, as far as giving us an indicator of what that looks like.
Yep, I agree.
Thank you.
We do have a comment that came in from Kyle. I think it kind of piggybacks on what was brought up by Nick. For the employees that would not receive a raise for 18 months, does the city feel it is acceptable or morally correct to expect that employee to carry out the work required to receive a meets expectation for a longer period of time, to receive the same compensation as someone that received a raise 6 or 12 months? Also, does the city anticipate the quality of work from those employees to possibly lack due to this issue? Great points. I think it was, like I said, brought up by Nick. I think that there's some room for some improvement in that area as well. Any other comments, questions?
I have a question for what Brittany said. So what would be our timeline that we would need in order to come up with a recommendation if we were to adjust? And I think for the city employees that are in the room, I think that's important to look at, is that if we do, for lack of a better term, and to use Brittany's term, punt this to 2028, that we're going to have to come up with some other recommendation for salary in a relatively quick period of time as well. And yeah, I don't know what that looks like at this point. So.
Thank you, Scott, members of the commission. Unfortunately, I'm going to ask for one today. We are on a tight budget timeline. So if that is, hey, we are recommending, conservatively that we are going to give your normal step increase with no adjustments. If we are recommending that we are going to apply, your normal step increase with a CPI increase, knowing that this is an interim until we adopt a new plan. I mean, whatever the commission kind of feels like, I would like to walk away with some sort of a recommendation today. Obviously, as everybody in this room is aware and we've stated, council can change that, but coming away with a recommendation today would be extremely valuable and appreciated.
I would 100% agree. Like you stated, we could make a recommendation, Scott, but ultimately, I'm sure the finance department would figure out the fiscal impact, report that to council, and then they could make changes accordingly based on when they're doing their budgeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I just wanted to share one more comment, which is to reiterate the thank you to our staff, to thank you to you as a Civil Service Commission. Thank you to Heron Palmer. They've put a lot of hard work into this, and I value the input of our employees greatly. I recognize the rush timeline. I value the feedback of wait till 2028. I think that gives us some time to build a strong organizational foundation to move forward with the directive given by City Council to move towards performance-based pay and continue to pay our employees appropriately. I feel very passionately about this organization. I feel very passionately about our employees. I want to do what is right holistically for us as an organization. And so I wanted to just take a moment to say thank you to everyone who has felt the ability to come at us with candor and professionalism and respect. It means more than I can say.
I would second that. So I appreciate all the comments that I received, the calls that I received. I received quite a lot. There was something that was brought up to me. Our numbers are, as the Civil Service Commission, our phone numbers and our contacts are not online. So people didn't know how to get a hold of us, which might have been why I was easiest to catch, because mine's pretty easy to find. Probably Scott's as well. But I think in the future we need to have that information updated on the city websites so that employees can reach out to us versus just not having a way or I'm fine with that. I guess, Kelsey, how do you feel about your email and contact information being?
That's fine.
And just so people know, that we're a volunteer-based commission. We don't get compensated at all. So it's not, we're not getting any kind of benefit from being here other than we care about, our community and we care about the employees. So any other comments? We've got another one that came online here, Brian Randash. I don't think they had enough time to review it properly in the water department. We have utility operators, the utility operator 3, the utility operator lead are the same step. The lead is supervisory role and has more responsibilities. How can we ask someone to do more and take on more responsibility for the same pay? That's a great comment and a great concern. I have the same ones as well. So we have somebody at the podium here. Go ahead and state your name.
My name is Frank. I'm with the city shop. I work as a mechanic. My question is, if somebody's placed on a PIP, per the city manager, they don't deserve a raise. And if you are placed on a PIP in February after you've been here for a significant amount of time and you're past the halfway point within the steps, if you're placed on a PIP in February, does that mean that you're going to wait 4 years before you can get another raise?
No, at review time, when you're past that halfway point, it would be if you're not on a PIP and you meet expectations. And so, if you missed it because you're on a PIP 1 year, the next year you would be eligible, if that's your 2-year mark.
Also, I think it's worth noting, if you do not agree with the reason you're being placed on the PIP, you can certainly bring that to the Civil Service Commission for us to review. It does mean, though, that your case will be reviewed openly So we have seen those. So if anybody is ever faced with some type of reprimand that way and you don't feel that it was just, you are welcome to bring that case to us because we review those as well. Any other questions or comments? Looks like someone else is coming up.
Hi, that's loud. Ben Clark, Airport. Just wanted to share my distaste for the 2-year rule for a promotion. I can't find any favor in that. Other than that, is anyone else here, raise your hand, if you think we should postpone this? Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. You're not as shy as you thought you were.
One last one. Being that this is kind of like a paying base, as far as I'm guessing management will let you know whether or not we met expectations for the raise, I'm guessing? Okay, so how will we keep that integrity intact without it being biased or, you know what I mean? And also management change all the time too. So right now, I would like to say I have great management, but if someone else new come in and just have a dislike for me, now here my pay is being withheld. So what restrictions are you going to put in place to make sure that the integrity is intact? And another prime example, not to bring up our business as employees, but I want you to look into the cemetery situation where pretty much you had management running people off. So with that being said, how will we keep integrity if this is going to be based off our management opinions?
Thank you. Kelly, you want to address that one?
That's a great question. Every review that is done, in my first year here, I read through every single last one of them. If I had questions, if I disagreed, if it didn't feel objective or fair, I reached out and I asked questions. The way the pay plan is currently written, it is also based on you have to meet expectations in order to receive your step increase. So it's not a change fundamentally from how it is now. I know Brittany a couple of years ago did some great performance management training for leadership. We will bring that back and refresh it again. This is a move towards organizationally working towards understanding what key performance metrics are in a job. How can we measure people fairly and accurately and appropriately? And that's a bigger holistic long-term picture that doesn't even hit against the pay plan, but holistically things that we are moving to strive towards as an organization.
Kelly, I wanted to follow up on that real fast before you get too far away. So if someone is having some discrepancies with maybe their supervisor or managerial person, how would they address that? Who would they contact? What's the protocol from the city so that people who are listening and paying attention, obviously we've got a lot of employees.
Absolutely.
What would you recommend in those
Absolutely.
situations?
If you are having an issue with your direct supervisor, you can go to their supervisor. You can come to me. You can come to any member of my staff. The grievance policy and procedure is laid out in civil service. It's laid out in our handbook. But essentially, if you have a problem or you're running into some issues, tell somebody. We can't fix a secret. And so come to me, come to your manager, come to the city manager. We will look into it. We will investigate it. If you don't like the resolve, you have the ability to escalate up through, essentially through the end, through civil service and through a formalized hearing here with this group. We would convene a special meeting and it would be held publicly where you can say your piece and we can say our piece and we will come to a resolve.
And I think we've seen some of those here. So just wanted to reiterate so anybody watching knows the protocol there. Looks like we've got another comment from Jeannie concerning the probationary period, since this is up to the discretion of management. If they decide they are going to remove someone from that, let's say after 6 months versus someone that is 12 or even 18 months, is there going to be compensation for the difference in the time period? My understanding is if adopted the new plan, there would not be a compensation difference on probation. The probation would simply be for civil service protection.
Correct.
So
there would not be a compensation change until they're in the January 1 review date to out of probationary period under civil service protection.
And if we don't adopt this, then how would that be addressed?
then it would be the same thing. If you get off probation, then you get your step increases that you currently get under the existing plan.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Monica Porterfield with HR. I wholeheartedly agree that there needs to be more time to digest and process this, both on the part of the employees, but also on your part as well, to really give it a thorough look over. My concern is that if we aren't able to move forward and we keep the current plan that we have, we do have people that are already at the top, that we don't really have room to grow, that we have people that, as Brittany mentioned, have not had a market survey or any kind of adjustment done. The further we continue to push it off, the bigger it's going to be and the harder it's going to be to overcome. And you know, maybe that's something to address to council members, that, you know, as we kick the can, it's just going to get bigger. So not being able to take into account all the work that Heron Palmer did with a lot of these market surveys, I think would be a real disservice to employees.
I would agree with that, but I do tend to think we need to take some time, work through it. I think there's some bugs that can be worked out. And I understand also that, you know, this is a very stressful thing for employees. The employees of the city of Minot have gone through a lot lately. You know, you hear things like, hey, we're going to need to cut budgets, and people are concerned about if they're going to be able to keep their jobs or pay their bills, changes to potentially benefits packages. You know, all of these conversations continue to happen, and I feel like it's on the backs of the employees and the uncertainty and the stress. So, you know, for me personally, I want to try to potentially slow things down just to help ease some of those concerns and make people feel a little bit more comfortable in the positions that they're serving in, because they're doing important work. So,
Absolutely. As you guys look to make a recommendation, I would just hope you would keep in mind that maybe putting some of that market data into the new pay plan. I mean, that is a lot of work. I know you'd asked kind of about a time frame earlier. It's not a small undertaking by any means.
no. And I appreciate the work that your department is doing. You guys are doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Granted, we, you know, have Heron Palmer that got a lot of the information, but you're the ones plugging all of it in, essentially. So I appreciate that. Looks like we have one more comment here from a Michael. I'm not going to mispronounce the last name. Are there grade ratings set in stone? And will there ever be an opportunity to debate the ratings? Kelly, do you have an address or an answer for that one?
We've talked about this as a proposed pay plan. I've had lots of calls over the last week about, I'm not sure that this grade and this ranking is correct. Bring it to me if you have a question. I'm candidly with the level 3 versus lead. That's been brought to me a couple times. It's a work in progress. We're looking at it. If it's not right, we will get it fixed. I'm committed. I want to pay people correctly organizationally wide. And if there's something inherently wrong, we'll go back. We'll look at the market data. I've had a few examples of that. I've re-pulled the market data. I've asked Heron Palmer to specifically pull the market data, be specific with the comps, and really walk through it. When things have fallen in between grades, we've looked at it. We've readjusted.
Thank you. There was one comment I missed, so thank you, Alex, for pointing that out to me. If the proposed pay, and this comes from Brittany Shefstead, if the proposed pay plan is not recommended for implementation in 2027, I would like, I would like a recommendation that addresses market adjustments for positions that were identified as below market. That's a great comment. I guess we'd have to rely on data from HR for those specific positions. Are we aware of how many that could be? Was it 69 of them?
Members of the commission, thank you. I apologize. And Brittany, counter me if I'm not correct here on what
Can
you're
you pull
thinking.
that closer to your mouth? Sorry.
I'm so sorry. Is that better?
Yep.
All right, thank you. So I guess one way I would look at it, and there are certain positions that are below, and some of that is based on how wide our ranges are. My recommendation at this point, and again, take this, use it as you see fit. I would like to see, and potentially maybe, you know, if Heron Palmer is still on the line, Chelsea or Hannah, we could either take a CPI index number or, you know, the percentage that they're seeing below from the Heron Palmer percentage and apply that across the board, just being that this has really been something that hasn't been addressed across the entire breadth of the employee body for multiple years. And again, with those things being halved, or last year it was just step increases and we didn't address any market, I think taking everybody and applying that as the operations, again, to speak back to Monica's comment, if we kick the can or punt, for lack of a better term, another year, the price tag on righting the wrong is going to be almost insurmountable. And so I would like to see either, you know, again, if we're keeping the normal step with a percentage based on CPI, or, you know, if Heron Palmer recommends that, whatever the commission thinks. So that would be my recommendation from the outside, and kind of my overall understanding of where we are currently.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Brittany? Jennifer Ekman also noted that if an employee is on a PIP, she would like to see that employees still receive the CPI increase, but postpone the step increase until they meet those expectations. Alec Albertson, is there a concern that the new proposed step structure has similar impact as the delay raises a previous council tried? I'm not sure if I'm reading that incorrectly. I do want to note, this room is occupied in 9 minutes, so I think this conversation is beneficial, but we will have to wrap it up shortly so we can turn the room over to. Go ahead, Jenna.
I'll provide context to that one. I would think he's referring to 2018. There was a delayed pay plan implementation to July 1 of that year. That's what I'm insinuating that one is talking about.
Perfect. Thank you. So, like I said, due to the timing constraints, I'm gonna check with Kelsey and Scott and see if they have any concerns, any suggested proposals, motions, based on the information that we've been presented. Scott, are you still with us?
Yeah, I am. Just sorry. Yes, I've got a motion I've been working on here, and give me just a second, because of course I'm working on it on my phone, and as I'm saying this, I lost it, because of course, why wouldn't I? All right. All right. I'm going to try this, and if it's incorrect or if there's anything I need to change, I please help me out here. I would like to make a motion to postpone the proposed pay plan to the 2028 budget cycle, and to recommend a normal step increase, and that the city staff make recommendations to the city council on any changes to the pay structure that should be made to the 2027. Oh gosh, see, nope. This is why I was doing it as I was doing it here. Okay, let me try this again. I would like to make a motion to postpone the oh my gosh, Scott, come on. I would like to make a motion to postpone. I would like to make a motion to postpone the proposed pay plan to the 2028 budget year. I would also like to propose that we look at CPI increases for all employees for the 2027 budget cycle. Does that sound right?
Include a step as well, or just CPI?
I guess I did actually write in step originally. Yes, step and CPI.
Do we have a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
For discussion? Any discussion on the motion? Now,
I'll just discuss it because.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Miranda.
I was just going to say, keep in mind, any recommendation that comes out of this body goes to council, and can still be changed. So it's very important for the employees to make sure that your council members are aware of your concerns as well. And I do believe that this conversation needs to continue. We do have issues in the pay plan. It's very evident. I think, the next year we need to be diligent in getting together with all of you to make sure that those needs are addressed, the concerns are addressed, the questions are addressed, and we put together a really well thought out plan for 2028. So go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say as well. Is it was actually really important to me that what we send to council gives the most options to them. I think that they've got the really hard decisions to make because they obviously are responsible for making the budget balance. But I also think that it's very important that they see and know that the staff are the most important asset that the city have, and that we need to make sure that they hear from all of you, as all of you have heard from, or we've heard from all of you today, that they hear from all of you about the importance of everything that you've talked about and all the things. And so many important things were said today. And so reach out to them, send them emails, speak during city council meetings, speak during the budget hearings. The earlier, the better, dispel the myths that they have about, any negative things that they might have about city employees and things like that. Talk about the pain that comes with turnover and the pain that comes with not getting increases, or the pain that comes with the inequities with other jobs, or how you're becoming a feeder source for other jobs. Tell those stories over and over again and get as many people as possible to tell those stories, because it's a lot more expensive to have that turnover than it is to keep the employees. So the more you can do, the better. So please keep doing that and keep telling that story. So my hope with this motion is that we send it on to city council in order to get you the best possible package you can have. So.
Thank you, Scott. Kelsey, do you have any comments? Or
I'd kind of like to echo what Scott had to say. That turnover is very expensive, and I think it's really important for all employees to have time to look over the new pay plan, see how that is going to affect them, come up with questions, and then have a chance to ask all of the questions that they have and really have a good understanding of what it is.
Thank you. I just also want to reiterate that, you can contact any one of us on the Civil Service Commission. Hopefully our information will now be posted on. So if you don't feel comfortable going to HR, you can call me. I'm not going to share your personal information with HR. It's a private conversation. And I would suspect that the other members of this commission are the same way. So if you feel like you didn't want to come up to the microphone or put a comment in, please contact us. We encourage you to do that. We welcome your comments and your concerns, and we want to do what's best to make sure that this is a good place for you to work and continue to thrive in our community. So any other comments on the motion before we vote? Last call for comments. Hearing none, I'll have you call the roll on the motion, please.
Scott?
Yes.
Kelsey?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes. With that, we are in line for a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.